Welcome back to another episode of the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host, Jay Teagues, your certified high performance coach, transformational mindset coach. And this is a very special episode. This is the 1 year anniversary, episode number 52, and a huge milestone for the Do Hard Things Nation. When I started this endeavor, well, for the longest time, this podcast was in the back of my mind. It was something that I wanted to do, but my own inadequacies, my own just fear, like, how can I do this? I don't know anything about this. Who's going to want to come on my podcast? All of those things, all of those negative, the negative talk and the negative self-belief and all of those things, were in my mind. And it was my friend Craig Horstman, who's going to be on this podcast, and Stephanie. But Craig ultimately challenged me to a challenge called 75 Hard. And during that process of going through that program, I gained some confidence and clarity in myself. It was in that time that I ultimately certified through Brendan Burchard's high performance coach program, invested a lot of money in myself and training. And I got out of my way and just decided, I'm going to start this podcast. And I used the critical tasks of phase one to put the podcast together. And so I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Craig for challenging me, and then having Stephanie as well. They were both on episode 1 and 2. They're both in my mastermind group called The Forge, and they have been with me from the beginning. And we talk about the importance of having people close to you that clap when you win, those friends that you could call at 3:00 in the morning and they would drop everything to be there for you. This is my tribe of people. This is my close circle, and they've been with me the entire way. So what we basically do in this episode is really kind of review. We talk a little bit about the podcast. We talk about how working together has improved all of our lives equally, and just the tremendous growth and opportunity that we've experienced over the past year together. And I thought having them on as a 1 year from, because they were the very first guest, and to bring them back would just be awesome. So that's what we did. We had a great conversation. So before we get into the conversation, just a little bit of housekeeping. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to the podcast so you're notified of future episodes, and leave us a review. Go to Apple iTunes. You can link to that in the show notes. And I know it's kind of a hassle and a pain to do, but I just humbly ask you that if you've gained any value from this podcast, that you go and leave a review, as it really matters as far as the ranking. We want, my vision for this podcast is to be a world-class podcast where a lot of people can gain value, and people have stumbled into it who don't know me and have gained tremendous value, and they have joined the Forge. They have hired me as a coach. So there's no doubt that there's a lot of value in this podcast. And, I can't do this alone. So, I don't charge you anything for the podcast. It's free. The price of admission is just to me humbly asking you to go leave a review, because they make a huge difference in our rankings and reviews and growth of the Do Hard Things movement. So please do that if you haven't already done so. Take a screenshot, share it on your social media, tag me in it. Let me know what insight that you gained, and, share it with a couple of your friends who may need to hear this message today. There's so many competing interests, a lot of garbage out there. And, what we're talking about here in this podcast can very well change someone's lives. I know this because people are reaching out to me, and their lives are being changed from the work that we're doing here. And so you can be that agent of change and putting a little positivity in the world. So we want to spread the word message about the work that we're doing here in the Do Hard Things Nation. And this episode is sponsored by jteagues.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching by application. And I have high performance leadership workshops. I have the Forge Mastermind, where I go in and teach weekly concepts. Speaker series that we just kicked off. We will bring in high performing people, a lot of them former podcast guests, to come in and talk to the community for Q&A, and other coaching, live events, special challenges, and accountability groups. And I send out a weekly motivational newsletter with updates on what's going on in the community. So go to jteagues.com. That's JAYTIEGS.com. Get signed up for the newsletter so you're notified of future events. And I always send out like my 3 finds for the week, maybe a cool movie, a podcast episode, motivational video, or a cool new tool or gadget that you can use to make your life better and give you a little snapshot of my life. I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to sell your information to anyone, but feel free to join so you're kept up to speed on what's going on here. We also have Do Hard Things Apparel. You can link to the show notes below, but we got hats and hoodies and shirts and a couple new items. We have the ruck funning shirts. Will play on words for those that don't like running, but they like to ruck. And then Chafing the Dream. Those are a couple new designs that Lacey put together, and they're up on the shop. So a lot of people are wearing them. They're doing their first 5K, half marathon. We've had people running, full-blown 60-mile races, 100-mile races, and they're wearing the shirts. And it's so awesome to see the Do Hard Things movement gaining ground and traction. People love the design. It's high-quality gear. So go show the world that you do hard things. All right, so let me read to you today's guest bio. So Craig Horstman is a retired first sergeant, United States Army, a husband, father of 5 children. He currently works for United Shield Life Insurance as an independent life insurance agent. He uses his knowledge of programs offered by the government and civilian insurance companies to educate transitioning service members to help them make the best financial decisions for themselves and their families as they separate from the military. Transition process is often stressful for a family, and he's doing a good job of helping other people. So if you know anyone that's transitioning from the military, get in contact with Craig because he has some resources that would really benefit people so they can make good decisions as they transition. He's an active member of his church where he sits on the church board, sings part of the praise team. He is a Legionaire for Phorm, enjoys hunting, fishing, spending time with friends and family. You can often find him talking smack to me. He's my accountability partner and brother. And if you follow him, you're going to get a lot of motivation of him beasting it out in the gym. So he's somebody you want to go follow. Stephanie Valdivia. She's a certified Block 1 strength and conditioning coach with Power Athlete. Amazing wife, super mom of 2. She's the co-captain of Team Red, White, and Blue. And she's also the after-school program director for Lakeway School District. She is awesome, just incredible motivator, has been with, part of the tribe and community, adding value. And I'm just honored to have both of them come back here on the podcast and talk about their growth and development. If you want to go back and listen to those, it'll be episode 1 and 2, respectively. You can also hear the growth of the podcast. Hopefully the audio and everything has gotten better. I make fun of Craig because the first time that he was on, I didn't have headphones. And, one of the reasons you want to wear headphones is so you can hear clearly. And he had a cold and he was sniffing and I didn't catch it. So I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't catch that. But still great content nonetheless. You can laugh at how we've evolved and grown. But I guess that's a teaching point. It doesn't have to be perfect. Things don't have to be perfect. You launch it and then you tweak things in flight. And I'm getting better with every repetition. And I'm hoping by this time next year when we hit podcast number 104 that the podcast sounds even better and that I'm even more on my A game. And so just launch it. If you have an idea, just get it out there and you can hear the whole evolution of the podcast, from episode 1 with Craig. All right. So what else? Yeah, I think that's it for me. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up here and let's get into today's episode.
Pants on today.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host Jay Teagues, and we are here in the basement of Stephanie's basement.
Welcome to my basement.
Stephanie and Craig, Stephanie Valdivia and Craig Horstman are here. You may have heard them in the first 2 episodes of the podcast. This is the 1-year anniversary, and I wanted to invite them back just to talk about like all the changes and growth in the last year. I want to talk about consistency, accountability. And really, what I want to bring you guys on for is because the podcast would not be here, really. I mean, it was a thought in my mind. Mm-hmm. But going back to being surrounded by like-minded people that push you out of your comfort zone, like this is my tribe of people, and the podcast wouldn't exist without, you guys pushing me and vice versa. And so first and foremost, thank you. A lot of people have benefited from this podcast, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And, really it kind of, the gauntlet got laid down with Craig, challenged me to 75 hard.
And me.
And Stephanie. Yeah, and really, that's why we're here. And we've all grown together. We've been working together. I have a mastermind group called The Forge, and they've been founding members of that. We have all been thriving in the last year. And that's really ultimately what we're going to talk about today. So very unscripted, but just wanted to celebrate the year, 52 episodes, and it's been a ride. So thanks guys for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been fun.
It's been a ride.
Yeah. So what do we talk about? Completely unscripted.
Well.
How has your year been? The podcast for both of you guys, it was the first podcast you were on. I guess what are your thoughts about your growth, the podcast, and everything else that you've been working on in the last year?
I mean, for me, it's been, wow, what a year. In the last year, like when we did the last podcast, first of all, I didn't have all this hair. Like I didn't have a beard because I was still in the Army. Over the course of this year, like I've worked my transition plan to the point that the 1st of January this year was my first official day of retirement. 23 years in the Army, I've gone to do something completely different. So there have definitely been some changes for me to go through all that. So yeah. And I mean, since you had me as the first guest on your podcast, you had nowhere to go from up, nowhere to go but up from there. So I mean, it's been a good time. It's been fun to watch that grow too.
Well, the podcast has evolved. One of the things that I joke about, I didn't have headphones, and I was still learning about podcasting, and I didn't realize this. But when you wear the headphones, you can hear a lot of little noises. And Craig had a little bit of a cold, so you hear him sniffling a lot. And had I had the headphones on, I would have caught that. But it was still great content nonetheless. Yeah. But Craig's been in the Army for the last 23 years. He's officially out, but he just started the transition process when we initially did the first podcast. Yep. And for those that don't know, the transition from military service is incredibly difficult. And, Craig's a high-performing individual. He's a master sergeant. He was a master sergeant in the U.S. Army. And that's probably, maybe only 10% of enlisted people make it to master sergeant. Is that correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So had a great career. And then, so I guess tell us a little bit about, what did you transition to and what did that look like for you?
So originally my plan was to, the reason we moved back here to Missouri was to retire, and I enjoy teaching. So to get a job on post as an instructor, just get back into the federal service system, do another 20 years and retire. I was working with you as my coach. Jay came up on an opportunity for an internship doing something that I had never even considered doing before, and that's life insurance sales. When I first thought about it, I was like, I'd been a recruiter before. I'm not a salesperson. Jay talks a lot about his recruiting experience. I think we were actually recruiters right around the same time frame. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was miserable. Absolutely hated it. Worst 3 years of my career. But when this opportunity came up to be in sales, at first I was like, no way, man, not again, never. But then as I started to work my transition and I learned about the programs related to life insurance that the government offers as opposed to what you can do on the civilian side, I was like, wait a minute, it's not sales anymore. This is finding my peers and educating them. Hey, because nobody educated me. Nobody pulled me aside and said, hey, this is the programs that are going to be offered. So when I saw that piece, I was like, okay, I can do this. This is me grabbing my buddies, filling them in on what's going on, continuing to be involved with our service members, but instead of working that 9 to 5, not getting to take my vacation time when I wanted to, whatever, I completely work my own schedule. And that's what I do now. I'm very active on LinkedIn, just with the education piece. Once a month I put on webinars, just educational. Hey, this is what the Survivor Benefits Program is. This is what VGLI looks like. And that's what I do. And it's awesome because, like I said, I can work my own schedule. I can work from anywhere. I can go back to Kentucky for deer season and work from there if I want to. So it's nice. If I want to go on vacation and work on vacation, I do that. It's just kind of, I get to do whatever I want to do now, and it's amazing.
Yeah, for a lot of people that get out of the military, they end up coming back in and working for the government because you get preference points, and it's like the safe route. You're going to get another pension, but it's still very bureaucratic, and people that do it oftentimes do it because of the safety net. And that was one of the things that was gravitating you is but now you're in the unknown because now you're doing commission based, but with that comes freedom. Yeah. But you can also, the freedom to produce as much as you want as well.
It was definitely, the thought of it was scary. And I mean, I'm on my first month without my full government paycheck anymore. And there was times even up to a couple weeks ago that I'm like, man, is this really what I'm like? Is this what I'm like? It took a lot to really take that leap of faith and do it still now. But there's definitely, I've seen the benefits of the freedom to do what I want to do. And I know with the work, I'm going to reap the rewards and it's going to be awesome. And that's where we're at right now. Plus my wife has gotten involved She's starting her own career, which she hasn't really had since we've been married. She's been a stay-at-home mom, and now she's working her piece. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a year for sure.
It's been awesome to see you take the leap of faith, and do it. And we wish you much success. But it sounds like you're helping a lot of people, and like I said, educating veterans on their veteran benefits and whatnot. So good deal. What about you, Stephanie?
Oh, I love 2021. Honestly, I thought about this. 2021 was such a kick-ass year, and like I got wrapped in with a group of people that truly changed my life. Like, we set goals. Like, I went to you for running help. I was like, I want to run a 50K. I've never done this before. It's something that's different, because in the strength conditioning or lifting world, everybody goes stagnant. And I knew that was something I wanted to do long term, and something that challenged me in a different way, in a mental capacity way. So for me, the running component was one thing, but that mental piece. But with deciding like, hey, I want to start running, well, then I got invited to do these other things like Ragnar. And holy crap, that was probably my favorite, most memorable weekend. But it all started with, like 75 hard, and then I opted not to do the other phases, which is fine. Moving in with work, and then with the Forge, and kind of like building goals around that. And one of them was my health and wellness. And so memories in 2021, like I became a little bit more selfish for myself. And by becoming selfish in myself, I was able to give back so much more to like my husband and my family and my friends. Like, because I got to take care of myself, I drove to North Carolina on a whim by myself. I did these things by myself. I didn't have anybody with me. And so I think that was really big growth-wise. Started getting all my info. I needed to go back to college. Unfortunately, my GPA from 10 years ago is too low. Like, back in 2004, when I graduated college, I wasn't thinking about going to get a master's. Unfortunately, it's still kind of hanging over your head. So I have to find an alternative route. But like, having you guys there is my accountability to push me in the right direction. Like, follow through. Like, what's your next step? I've been able to figure it out. I'm now moving in the right direction. I want to be a high school principal. Like, that's my end goal. So now, like, putting that into motion. And even with Craig, like, with Lorenzo and I, we're in this space where we're on this big leap of faith with him trying to do something else. He got out of the military and went into a government job because it's that safe security. And that all changed in October. And I'm over here like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But you're right though, Jay. Like, you get these cool opportunities. And I think the Forge has been really cool for that. Like, I've grown like in my personal growth, but like I've grown like at work. Like, I feel like I have such a good purpose. Like, I'm able to get back to what I want to do, make my steps forward. But 2021, I think, has been the most memorable year I've had, not just with 75 hard, but with like Sunday dinners, like our family dinners that we do here, going on these random trips, Dogwood and Ragnar, and making these memories, like our stupid Fireball 5K, like all these dumb things that we do together that I'm like, man, like how cool. So for me, like, it has been probably the most memorable year that I've had in a really, really long time.
Yeah. During a pandemic where a lot of people are freaking out and still just a lot of angst, right? I know most of us are feel like we're thriving. Like you said, having a memorable year.
Absolutely.
And working together. And I know all of us like call each other out on our bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And push each other. I mean, even me, like, Craig calls me out, Stephanie calls me out on stuff too, and we hold each other accountable. It's been awesome. And the friendships have been more meaningful because we're doing adventures together. And let's talk about your husband. Oh. He's also been growing.
Yeah.
He might pop into the podcast. We'll see if we can get him
It's okay. He might be taking Jared to a friend's house. No, so I tell Jay and Craig this all the time. Like, Lorenzo is a whole different person now than I knew him a couple years ago. He was in a government job. That was what he was comfortable with. He loves to be an instructor. And then his contract didn't get renewed in September. So he's found himself in a place where he wasn't working for the military anymore. And so he has this desire to teach law enforcement. That's what he would do for the rest of his life if he could. So he hopped on, he had gone to a course, and now he's working to become one of their IT and like one of their instructor trainers. And so he actually leaves in 2 weeks. He does his very last week of instructor trainer certification, and then he gets to go and teach these courses on his own. So he's starting his own business. He's got plans. He wants to do a number of different things and find different revenue streams. And his ultimate goal is to not go back and work for the government or finish his time out, you know, and that's where we're in this like weird limbo. Do you finish your vested time, or do you sit into the unknown and take that leap of faith? And right now we're in this like leap of faith. I'm a little stressed out. He's not at all, but it's really neat. Like I've never seen him interested in like a business plan. Yeah. We were just talking about like SEP IRAs this morning because I'm reading it in one of my books, like finding, you know, the self-employment IRAs that he can get into, that he can put his funds into, and how does that work long term for us, and what does that look like? And he has really enjoyed finding things that help him like bring in some income, but things that he enjoys. Like the man makes turkey calls and he loves it. And I'm like, what the hell? Like,
and what's interesting about Lorenzo, like we all have friends that I would consider very surface level. Like you go down to the bar and tell jokes with, and that they're fun friends. Yeah. Lorenzo has always kind of been that way for me. Like I've never really had like really detailed, in-depth conversations with him. Stephanie's been on the Forge calls, and apparently Lorenzo has been like taking notes, like just listening in the background, and has had this complete transformation. And out of nowhere is like, I'm all in on the Forge. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I mean, we're all looking at him like, who are you? And now it's awesome to see the light switch in him and see him so driven now, because he's a completely different person than the Lorenzo I knew.
And it's funny that you say that, because Steph and I have been close for, like, we've known each other for 7 years. We've been like, she's my second best friend in the whole wide world. Over the last several months, like Lorenzo, like you said, like we get together, we drink, we tell jokes, whatever. Lorenzo, over the last couple months, I now talk to him every day. Like, I don't talk to Steph as much anymore.
Which is
because,
fine.
like, Lorenzo works from home, I work from home. So every morning he comes to the house. And like he'll have coffee, or we'll go somewhere and have coffee, and he's talking turkey calls, or he's talking his training, or I'm talking some, like we're talking work stuff, which we've never done before. But yeah, it's funny that, like, I mean, I still talk to Steph all the time, obviously, but now Lorenzo isn't just the, hey, let's get together and throw down some beers. You know, it's, hey, let's talk about what's going on here. I came over here yesterday. He's like, hey, I need you to help me figure something out. And then he was showing me, he's upstairs turning turkey calls. Hey, let me show you how to do this. And like, it's been really cool to watch.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we talk about this mastermind group, right? Where we all get into the Forge, and I was in. I'm ready to figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like Jay's got this group, and I don't know what the hell it has to do, but I'm gonna try, right? Like I want to see my friends succeed. I want to see a change. And so I put these calls on. Lorenzo would listen, and then he would say little things in the back, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, do you want to join with me? Maybe. I'm like, all right, you're just gonna start joining. Well, then this year it turned into like, hey, I'm going to buy you a planner.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. And so.
The first time you told me, she's like, I'm trying to get Lorenzo on the Forge. And in the back of my head, I'm like, there is no way.
Yeah. That's
just because Lorenzo's always been Lorenzo. And then all of a sudden, there he is. And I was like, okay, we'll see how long this lasts. This will be pretty cool. And here we are talking about it.
And it's interesting. He's not into some things that we are. And I really appreciate that about him too. Like, I'll go run, right? Like, we want to go to ruck or we want to go to run. I'm all down. Let's go. I don't care, like, sign me up for it. That doesn't suit his fancy. He's not a big fan of it. And he'll tell you, like, I don't want to run. But if you need help building something, or if you need help with something else, like, he's all in for that. Yeah. He helped
a few of us, and, you know, it's a great thing about Masterminds, you pool your resources. He helped a couple of us get our LLCs up going, you know? Yeah. And so...
It's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool to see just the mental mindset shift in someone. That's probably been one of the most remarkable ones for me.
I've really enjoyed watching it with Ayla.
Yes.
So the last, was it year before last?
Ayla's Craig's wife.
Yeah, my wife. She had a slump. We were here. She wasn't happy. Like, she didn't really have, she's been a stay-at-home mom, like I said, for 17 years. She's worked like little jobs to get out of the house, whatever, but she was very independent before we got married. And then we got married, immediately had kids, so she's been stay-at-home mom. And when we came back here, she didn't have a purpose. And it was really like, she had a really, really bad year. What sucked was it was the year that we did 75 Hard for the first time. And like, I started to see where I was going and like to have that purpose. So I'm starting to move forward while she is back here stuck in a slump. But over the last year, like last year, I got her to do 75 Hard. And that kind of started to shift. And then I was able to get her in the Forge, just like Lorenzo. And then she started to work with you and started to figure out her purpose. And it was rough. Like, she had some stuff, several different things this year. Her mom died, some other stuff that just kind of life kept trying to kick her back. and she didn't let it work. Like, she wanted to be a real estate agent. She ended up taking her tests 5 or 6 times, and every time she did it, I was like,
oh man,
I know.
Yeah,
she gets so close to just
Yes.
wanting to throw her hands up and quit. Where it's like, keep consistency.
Yes,
keep showing up.
Yeah, and every time, like, I would send her a message. I knew she was up taking her test. I knew she couldn't check her phone. She wouldn't be done yet, but I'd send her a message. Hey, how did you do? So when she first came out, that would be the first thing she saw. So if she passed, she'd be like super excited, and I could share that excitement with her. Every time that wasn't the response, and I was just like, oh man, in my head, I'm like, I hope this isn't the time that and you and I talked. There was once or twice that I was like, it may be time to look at something else. But even Jay looked at me and was like, no, this is like, there's no plan B. This is it.
Stay the course.
Yes.
And she had committed earlier in the year, like 2021 is going to be my year. Yep. This is what I'm going to do. And this is the year that she lost her mom.
Yep.
A lot of things were going on.
Yep.
You guys had some family issues. Your transition. And that now here's the thing. She's German, so she's taking this test. English is her second language.
Yep.
So I'm like, you got to give yourself some grace. It's not that you don't know the material.
She tried to do the online study for it, which didn't work. She ended up going to Springfield, which is an hour away. She had to go for a week. She's never really left the kids. Like, she's never really looked at me and said, hey, I'm leaving. And I was like, hey, if you need to go do this in person, go. And like, she left for a week. She stayed with a friend, with Katie actually, and went and did it. And then, things got rough. But then in December, I finally got the message. I passed.
Yeah.
And it's been like, there's still a transition there. This past week was her first week actually being in the office. But just to see her starting to work through that and starting to see that spark come back that I haven't seen in a long time is
well, and it's
really
really
cool.
Neat when you look at Ayla. So like, knowing Ayla from when you guys were here before, she was Ayla, right? So it was Ayla. Ayla, she had her job, she did her things, it was whatever. When you guys had come back, it was mom. So she wasn't Ayla, and she had such a close-knit group in Kentucky that when she came back here, she lost that sense of like her person.
Well, and when she was here before, we had 2 girls who are 2 years apart in age. Then by the time we came back 3 years later, we now have 5 kids.
Yep.
And we have 5, 3, and 1.
Yep.
So whereas then she had teenagers, or not teenagers, but a little older, a little more independent. She had her time to herself. Then she ended up being home with small kids again.
So pause real quick, just for frame of reference. Craig being in the Army, they were stationed here at Fort Leonard Wood, moved away to Kentucky, and then came back.
Yep.
So just for those who don't know what we're talking about, and she's been a stay-at-home mom most of your career.
Oh, the entire thing.
Yeah. And so this was a huge endeavor for her, and this is something that she's been wanting to do, is start a career once Craig got out. But it was challenging, and the real estate exam is not easy.
No.
It's not uncommon. You talk to most real estate agents, it takes it a couple times. But what was awesome was she was at the moment of like just wanting to throw her hands up and quitting.
And she didn't.
I'm like, I kept thinking about David Goggins and how many times he took the ASVAB, and when you think that you're done, you're only at 40%. Like, you got to keep going.
Yep.
And the consistency and the persistence of not letting up will ultimately yield to success. And for some things, there's some barriers in life. It's a barrier to entry, right? You got to get you got to pass the exam. And there's a lot of these barriers to entry. Like, there's probably nothing on that exam that's going to help her really sell a house. It's just like, it's kind of like the PMP exam, a project professional management exam that we take as engineers, or what you're dealing with for your teacher certification, right?
The teaching stuff.
It's like you have to get the certification just to prove yourself, and
it's a rite of passage.
It's a rite of passage.
That's the same thing. So I had to be licensed to sell life insurance. I had to take an exam, and it was pretty rough. But like, my boss told me, he's like, "Hey, it's just a rite of passage. Like, there's really not much. There's been 1 or 2 little things along the way that from all of that material that actually helped me. But for the most part, it's what it is. It's a rite of passage. You do it, you get it over with, and then you move on. But they're gonna make you work for it.
I think what these things do is they push away interested people, and they attract the committed. And you have to demonstrate some capacity to do it, and that's really what it is. It's like jumping a hurdle. You just got to get over the hurdle, and then you're good to go, and you're in it.
Yeah.
Well, but so going back, like Ayla finally passing her test, right? She has that huge sense of relief that she's been working towards. Just since then, it's been so cool to see the change in her. It's like that purpose has come back again. Like, I get to be Ayla, and then she found an agency that she was going to work with, a group. She's gone in and she's starting to learn. And so, she's starting to get that feel of like her being
She's
herself
got an
again.
office. She's got a window. Like she's looking to decorate. She's
She
excited
has to
about
bring
all
a
these
plant.
things.
Yeah. Her plants.
Yeah.
But it's neat.
It's
You know what I
great.
mean? I think it's great for her because now, like, I said something to her, she's like, well, I got it. I've been putting it in my planner. And I was like, praise Jesus, I was using my planner.
Yeah.
Like, thank
awesome.
you. Because last year she was like, I hate this thing. I'm not going to use it.
Yep.
You know, and now it's like a flip. You know, with Lorenzo, it's like, I want a monthly planner. I'm like, okay. So I bought him a monthly planner. And he's like, well, I think I might use this one that has the weeks in it. And I'm like, I don't care as long as you're using a planner, right? Like, find a planning system that works. So sometimes Google Calendar doesn't always work. But it's so neat to see, like, even with our spouses, like, just how much they've grown over the last year, even if it was that they weren't 100% in.
Yeah.
Like, Craig and I were, like, 100% in, and they were, like, squeaking over there, and they're like,
and to me,
10 or
that
20.
makes it even better. Like, the stuff that I've done over the last, like, 2 years is cool, but seeing, like, my wife or like Lorenzo, there's several other people like in our group, watching them and being able to take part in that is super cool.
Well, since you guys talked about your partners, I'm going to talk about mine. She's not here, but Lacey. Like, Lacey just recently finished phase 3 of 75 Hard. So the whole Live Hard program. And I remember initially, I always tell her she's pretty stubborn when I recommend things to her. And but she'll come around like a couple weeks later. She'll just start, okay, I'm doing 75 Hard now. It's like, oh, really? Okay, cool. Once she gets her fixated on something, she is relentless. She won't stop. But her growth, she's starting to use her planner now, and she's starting to look at, starting a business. And she just finished 75 Hard, and she's taking more bold action and being more courageous. And it's cool because she's part of the tribe, just doing epic things. Everyone is just thriving. And when you have like your life partner on board with you, it's so freaking cool.
It's really cool.
You as a unit will grow exponentially.
It's amazing where the boat can go when you both paddle in the same direction, right? Something like that has come from you at some point in time when talking about me and my family and my kids.
It's like, if you've ever been in a canoe and one person's paddling one way, the other person, and you're not in sync, you're just gonna sit there and spin and do donuts, right? But getting on the same sheet of music, sharing. So the exercise we just recently did was like, what are your 50 life goals?
Yep.
Yeah.
Share that with your partner. Have you ever shared that? No. And why is that? These are like little things that we just don't think to do. And we, for whatever reason, we just kind of hold them to ourselves.
Yeah.
But your likelihood of success is sharing that. We burn the ships, right?
Yeah.
Share it with your partner. Share it with your tribe. And you're going to start to execute more of those things.
Yeah. And I mean, like, one of the things that Ayla and I are having to work on now is like we have to sit down together. Like before, when it was just me, I could do whatever I wanted to because she was home with the kids and that's what she did. Now she's going separate ways and we're like finding things. Hey, we got to sit down and talk about this because we're missing stuff. So you have to have that communication piece or you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, like when you can share your goals, like it makes it more real.
Yeah.
Right? Like
when you go public, you have to do it.
Well, and I think part of it too, though, is, and up until recently, I was turned on to the Law of Attraction Planner from my friend Brittany Ortega, and she is fantastic with it. She had used it and gave it to me, and I think that's kind of how we all started talking about it. But it was like, write down your 50 goals, make them big, make them, and I'm like, I cannot think of 50 freaking goals. And so they just started becoming, well, then I saved that one, I did it next year. And then you can like add, and it's so cool. I take a highlighter at the end of the year and I kind of highlight when I finish the goals. But then doing that this year, and I'm writing these goals, and I've done this a couple years now, but to have Lorenzo sit and write his goals, and I'm like,
I actually had to do, so last year was the first year I did the 50 goals in the Law of Attraction Planner. And when I was first looking at it, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And through phase 3 in December, my powerless task for several days was 10 goals. I was like, you're going to make yourself get through this. You're going to have to do it. And that's exactly, it was a powerless task to get those goals done. That's the only way I finished it.
Well, these exercises are important because without clarity, without knowing what you want, you're going to end up falling into what someone else wants to do. And so that's been the exercise is gaining clarity for yourself. And when you can synchronize that with your partner, the likelihood of you executing it, it increases exponentially. And then you don't get wrapped up doing a bunch of stuff that you don't want to do. And speaking of that, what are some of the things that you guys have started to put some boundaries on and say no to because you have more clarity in your life? That's one thing I'm always asking people is like, what's something you can take off of your plate? What's something that's not serving you?
So this year for me, like I took a big step back from the volunteer organization that I was a part of for so long. I'm still like a small local leader, but I had to take a big step back. I can't possibly, you know, work full time, get my kids to where they need to go, focus on myself, taking my test, doing all these things, and still try to be as involved as I was before. And so that was a long conversation just within the Forge and with you guys and Lorenzo. Like, I needed to take a step away from myself. And that was really hard. I felt like I was disappointing people, but I wasn't. In turn, it's me setting those boundaries for myself. And I think just doing that, learning to say no, I think has been really, really huge in just making my time. I think that is, Jay, you and I have talked a lot about that. Like, I put time blocks on a lot of things because my time is so valuable for myself. And when other people don't respect my time, and I try my best to respect other people's time, it's infuriating because I could be doing so many things. So it's really just being particular with my time and really putting the boundaries up with my time. And if it doesn't sit in my time frame, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not, because it doesn't suit myself. And I have found so much, kind of like we talked about, so much clarity, and I have so much off my shoulders. I feel less stressed. And am I really less stressed? Probably not, but I have those boundaries now. And I love that.
The same, like, I was a leader in that same organization, and the bad thing was I wasn't giving it everything it needed. So I felt bad about, hey, I'm not putting everything into this position that I need to. So I made it a point to say, hey, even though I kind of feel bad doing it, I'm stepping away from this because I wasn't as active as I should have been, but now I don't have to worry about it as much. I was actually offered a position in another organization, and I had to say no. I was like, I would love to do it, but I don't have, to use the term, I don't have the bandwidth for it. Like, I've got so much other stuff going on that I just can't do it. So and honestly, one of the biggest places that I've seen me and my wife use boundaries more is with the kids. The kids tend to kind of chip away until we say yes, but we've both been a lot better over the last several months about, we told you this is what was going to happen, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to win just because you keep bugging us. So that's been huge, especially for Ayla. She's working on that and getting better with it, because mom's always a pushover. It was the same way in my house growing up. I knew if dad told me no, I could get mom to say yes. But she's gotten a lot better with, I know mom told you no, the answer is no. That's one of the big places, boundaries for me is, like Stephanie said, with my time as well as with the family and with the kids. So kind
of going back to those organizations where we talk about is like, high performing people and selfless servants who want to serve often get involved with organizations because you want to make an impact. You want to help. You want to take your talents and abilities and help people. But oftentimes these organizations, whether they be religious or nonprofit or whatnot, they're often understaffed, under-resourced, and what do we go into the position thinking we're going to do one thing, and other people don't show up, or you're limited on manpower, and what happens? Mission creep in the military, right? You do a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then before long, like, you're working a lot, volunteering, and you don't want to necessarily pull away, but it's taking up a lot of resources. You get frustrated because it's not working the way you want it to. And then ultimately, who loses? Like, you're losing out on your personal time, your family time, and then it becomes an obligation. What was supposed to be something that was, enjoyable, where you're serving people, you're showing up at 60% capacity. Then on top of that, you're feeling guilty. And those are usually some of the things I try to help people. Like, okay, are you really benefiting the organization by not showing up on your A game? Like, maybe we need to step back and hand the reins off to someone else who can bring in some new blood to that. And then you can take that time and reallocate it back to things that are important. Because when you're not showing up on your best, everyone else pays for that.
Absolutely.
And so a common pitfall is usually, churches and nonprofits. And I love all those organizations, but they can be very time consuming and very taxing. So putting some boundaries up on that.
Absolutely.
It seems like almost everybody in our group has had to take a step back from something. They were overextended in some way. So,
but I think it's good because where you can take your step back from that, sometimes you can start to do some more in other ways, right? Like you can start reaching some other goals that you may not have thought of. And I think that's a big part. We talked a lot about before, like consistency, and that, like, I think that's part of it, like not falling back into the same trap that you were in before. Being consistent with what you say you're going to do, or sticking with it. And I think that's that consistency and accountability piece kind of blend in together. Like, I know that if I'm like falling into a trap, I can call any one of these people I surround myself with, my tribe, and say like, ooh, sorry, Jay, and say like, hey, like, by the way, I'm having blah, 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 and you're like, no, like, what's your goal?
Yeah.
All right, well, you're right, like, that wasn't, I took a step away for a reason, why am I getting sucked back in?
Yeah. No, consistency, that's one of the talking points of this podcast. I mean, this is what, so 96% of podcasts don't make the 2-year mark. When I heard that, I was astounded. Like 96%, that's almost all of them don't make it to 2 years. So I knew like right then and there when I started this endeavor, like we're making it to 2 years. And so this is the halfway point, and I'm excited because it's continued to grow, and I show up, and there were times that I thought about quitting. And because it's just like I didn't see the numbers going up, or it was too time consuming to try to do everything else. But I'm like, no, I need to see this through. I started talking to my other podcast friends who have podcasts, and they said the same thing. Don't look at the numbers, get to 2-year mark, and then evaluate.
Yeah.
And so that's when I look at my life, the things that have yielded success. I wasn't born with innate talent. I didn't have money. I came from a broken home. I had a lot of cards stacked against me, but the one thing that I was able to do that's yielded my success is just showing up and pushing through. Like, it took me, I joke about this, especially when I was like, over working with the lieutenants. Like, it took me 10 years to get my 4-year degree and go to officer candidate school. I'm like, it took me 10 years to do what you guys did before.
Yeah.
But I never stopped. I always took a class. I just never let my foot off, and it ultimately led to my degree.
That's what I'm doing right
which
now.
enabled me to go to officer candidate school. And so, I was delayed in some ways, but I met that threshold so I could throw my name in the hat to go do that. And it ultimately led me down a different path in my career, which I am really thrilled about.
It's taken me would be over 23 years to get the degree that I started to get when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
But I'm going to finish it. It's going to be done. This year I will be done.
Just being persistent and consistent and just building, just build. Just continue to build.
Well, and I think about it too, right? So everybody gets gung-ho about something in the beginning, right? Like, I appreciate the New Year's, and I appreciate people that make goals. We're going to call them resolutions. We're going to call them freaking goals. But guess what? Like, they like it because it's the shiny new thing.
Yep.
You know, like, this is something I'm going to achieve. And then what happens? Like, you're motivated in the beginning. You're motivated. You're ready to go. You're going to do this. But then what happens? Life gets in the way.
Yep.
You get COVID. You get, a death in the family.
Yeah.
You have a bad day. You fall off the wagon. You do whatever. And then all of a sudden, even though you had these goals set, we drop them.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we drop it because guess what? Now I'm not motivated.
Yeah.
Right? So I think part of it though is that like motivation is not always there, but it's that consistency and that discipline that you create those habits, right? Like you get up and go. Like I get to coach strength and conditioning with high school kids. I'm not motivated every day to go to the gym. There are a lot of times, especially when I don't have a goal in mind, it's hard to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. Like I want to get stronger and I want to go, but I'm not always motivated to go. Sometimes I'd rather just sleep in or, hey, maybe I could do this instead. But I know in my mind, like I push that away and I work towards my goals.
Yeah.
And I stay disciplined in what I'm doing. And the same with like eating. Everybody pokes fun at me, or a lot of people do, like, oh, you're the healthy one and you guys don't eat that in your house. Like, no, that's not the case. I just know that my body feels better when I eat while doing this. I love pizza like everybody else. I love beer. Hello, like beer is my favorite. But I know that my body functions better when I fuel it with, proteins and I eat carbs and I have veggies. Like I know that I feel better. I don't feel gross, And I think that that's part of it. It's just being kind of disciplined in what you're doing. Motivation goes away, but you got to stay consistent.
Yeah. Well, you talked about that when you first start off on something because you're all excited. You're like, I'm going to do this thing. Yeah. There's 5 stages when it comes to change. And that first point is like, okay, I'm excited. I'm going to do this new thing, new year, new me. I'm going to do, for example, because we talk about 75 hard a lot. I'm going to do 75 hard. Look at all the food. I'm going to do this. I'm excited. And then what happens? You start doing it for about a week or so. And then the resistance, like life happens. Just the resistance of life. COVID. Yeah. Death in the family. Or you're leaving the holidays, now you go back to work. And it's like, things happen. Bad weather. And what happens, you start to face the resistance like, oh, this is starting to suck a little bit. Okay, can I hold this thing together? And then you hit that's phase 2, going from excitement to like, oh shit, I'm in resistance, like this sucks. And you start to question yourself a little bit, but you continue to press on. The third stage is what we call getting to the valley of despair, which is where like FML,
doing this?
I want to quit. I'm ready to tap out.
Yeah.
This sucks. This isn't for me. I can't do it. And then what most people do is they do quit.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle. They never get past phase 3. They get excited, face resistance, valley of despair, quit. And that's the cycle for everything that they do. What high-performing people do differently is that when they're faced with that FML moment, they continue to press on anyway, because when you finally press on, you will get a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start breaking away from those old habits. And I always think about, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was just talking about this today. I think about the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, where he's at the Death Star, and the tractor beam was like so powerful, it like sucked them in, you know? And they got the death grip on them, but they're able to break away, and they finally slam it in ludicrous speed from, what's the Star Wars?
Not a Star Wars guy, I don't know, I'm sorry. You two are the Star Wars
Spaceballs,
people.
ludicrous speed,
Spaceball.
go!
Oh, okay.
They slam
I was
it
gonna
down.
say Tesla, because Tesla.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
They've gone plaid. No, and they broke away. They break away. That's the moment. It's breaking away, being able to break free from your old habits, and then you get to that sense of accomplishment, which is stage 5, which is like, you know what? I freaking did it. How you doing?
Go ask Dad.
But that's the key, is to be able to see you, buddy.
Welcome to my life, Grand Central.
To be able to break free, and that's the thing, when you're in the valley of despair, to continue on. And that's where grit and discipline, that's where having clarity and a powerful why,
that's where
having people around you to call.
A week ago, we were just talking about this. A week ago, like I'm doing phase 3 for the Live Hard Challenge again to finish it out. I was a couple days in, I had one little thing go wrong, and I was like, I guess that's it, I'm done. And I mean, it was something that could be changed. It was something that I could do differently, and I called Jay. And I was like, hey man, I just wanted to be, I'd already talked to my wife, but I called Jay and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm done. Like, I messed up, like I'm out. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, this is what happened. He's like, that's stupid. That's not right. And you're going to fix this and you're going to keep going right now. And I was like, I guess you're right. Okay. And there's multiple times through like all last year, like we were the ones, I'd call Steph, I don't want to do this anymore.
Me neither, Craig, but let's go. We got to go on a walk. Go outside.
Just like when I went to Sapper school back in 2002, I'll never forget it to this day. Like I still talk to my Sapper buddy. You've got people. Shut up. And it was me and my buddy, and like every day we took turns. Like I'd be like, Kevin, like I don't want to do this, and I don't know, this is stupid. I don't want to be here. Like I'm not doing this. And he'd just be like, hey dude, shut up. Like put your ruck on and let's go. And then the next day, Kevin's like, hey bro, like I'm done. Like this is stupid. And I'm like, no, we're here. Let's get. And you know that you've got to have those people. Having your own internal motivation and drive is awesome. But eventually that is going to start to wear thin.
Yes.
And that's where it's super important to have those people around you that you can call and be like, hey, so I'm done. And then they look at you and go, no, you're stupid. You're going to keep going. Let's do this.
But
so,
I think part of it too, though, is finding like-minded individuals, right? Because you can call a friend somebody and then be like, well, you should just quit then. Like, that's not the kind of people that you want to like put yourself with. I mean, Lorenzo's not a 75 hard guy, but I'd be like, I don't want to do this. He's like, oh, what are you going to do? Quit? Like, screw off. And I like leave. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that that's part of it when we talk about finding like-minded people. You find a group of people that are kind of moving in the same direction you are. If you surround yourself with negative people that all they do is think pessimistically about their life, when you call them with a problem, they're probably going to give you 10 different things that's going wrong. Rather than putting yourself around a group of people that are like, hey, what do you have to do to fix it? And no, you're not going to quit. And I get it. You know, you reach this barrier, but how do you get over it? What's your next step?
It's like, cool story, bro. I'm glad that's what you think you're going to do, but you're going to like put on your big girl, big boy panties, pull them up, and keep going.
I see it all the time. People, they just make a proclamation on Facebook. I was doing this thing, I had to stop. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's okay. You deserve to quit. You deserve to take a knee. That was really hard. You should be satisfied with what you got so far. You have plenty of people like that in your life. They're going to tell you it's okay. You need people, you need people in your life that are going to be like, you know what? Okay, got it. Rub some dirt in it.
Let's go.
And the more people like that you have in your life, the more successful and the more fulfilling it's going to be. Because there's so many people are so caught up in comfort and they're just, I don't know, it's just...
It's that status quo. Like, I'm okay with
They're satisfied with being mediocre and they're okay with that.
But guess what?
And that's okay for some people.
We need mediocre people too.
Yeah, it's not okay for everyone.
You know.
I think though that's part of it. You said, like there's enough people out there that just do the status quo or just do whatever or feed the it's okay to quit mentality. I think for me, like that's what's really helped me push myself through this year is finding people that help me level up to the next level.
Yeah.
And finding people that continue to push me in the right direction. Because truly, without people like that, I'd probably be in the same place I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like that. I want to continue to move forward. I want to reach my goals. I want to teach my kids that it's okay to reach these goals.
I'd be working at Lowe's right now.
I mean, you did talk about it.
I know. I remember every time you said you're going to go work at Lowe's, I'm like, don't ever say that to me again.
But I think about it. Like,
there's nothing wrong with working at Lowe's, but I know that was not.
So my plan,
You would
part of
not
my
be
plan,
satisfied with that.
I talked about how I wanted to retire and get a job on post. Well, in order to get that job on post, I wanted to get into the DoD civilian system, the GS system. But you have to wait 6 months after you get out. So I was just going to go get a job at Lowe's or something and work there. Just do something minimum wage to pass the time until I could get a contract job, or until I could get into the system rather. And when I started working with Jay, he's like, "Yeah, if you ever say that again, I'm going to punch you in the face." So that's kind of the joke now. And Ayla will say that too. Like I'll be doing something, she'll be like, "Hey, you could be working at Lowe's right now," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of dumb, huh?" But yeah, there's.
I just knew that you had something greater in you, and that wasn't going to be it. But and like I said, there's nothing wrong with working
there's
Lowe's,
not.
but there is if you have greater ambition.
That would have been
and
like
you're not
my
using your
mediocre.
talents and resources.
Yeah, that would have been my mediocre, just paycheck to paycheck, hour to hour.
There's no way you would have been satisfied
No,
doing that.
absolutely not.
And I, it's my job as your coach to help you raise your ambition, right? Big hairy goals and get after them.
They are a little scary sometimes, not gonna lie.
Yeah, they should scare you a little bit, but that's how you grow and that's how you.
Yeah,
I mean that's life.
Yeah.
Right? Push through anyway.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, that's awesome. So, well, we're about 45 minutes. What else you guys want to talk about?
What's up with that shirt you got on, Steph?
Dude, this shirt's super cool. This is part of the new Do Hard Things swag club. It's called Ruck Funning.
What does ruck funning mean?
I don't know. Something cool.
I got one too.
It's a play on words. Actually, I have to say, that's been one thing. Craig and I always would joke that we're not runners, and at the end of the day, Craig and I are runners. I don't care what he says.
Hold on, let me back this up because I just listened to your podcast the other day with Ryan Mickler.
Yeah.
And you guys talked about this, and I don't know if you've heard it or not.
I haven't.
He specifically called us out without calling us out. I don't
he
remember
did.
what it was they were talking about, but they said, I've got these friends who are CrossFitters who swear that they're not runners, but they go and they do all these runs. And Ryan Mickler was like, they're runners. So I just want to tell you in front of everybody,
You're a runner.
I don't care what you say. Ryan Mickler, wherever you are, I don't care what you say. I'm not a runner, and this is how I feel about running.
But here's the deal. Craig is a runner, and I'm a runner. And I think what I said to somebody the other day was, it's not the running that I enjoy. Because truly for me, it becomes monotonous. I enjoy certain... But it's the memories that I've made with you guys that have been the coolest part about running. I could care less about running.
Oh, running by yourself sucks.
There's a lot of suck fest that happens with it. But getting to do cool stuff like that,
we
that's
did
what's so cool.
If those of you, some of you out there know what a Ragnar is, we did a Ragnar this year. It's a Ragnar in Kentucky Bourbon Trail. What a Ragnar is over 200 miles. It's a run, but it's a relay. You have two vehicles. Depending on your team size, you have 6 people per vehicle, and you leapfrog each other to run, and it's consistent for a day and a half, 2 days.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of sleep. It's 24 hours a day.
But you end up spending hours with these people, and we all knew each other. We were all friends, but we had never spent that much time together. So you really get to know. We really had a good time getting to know more about each other and the people we were with, and people that we thought were friends are now better friends because of it. It was really cool.
But I think that's part of it. Just this mentality of do I really enjoy running? No. But it's been cool just to experience the adventure. The adventure of it to me has been the best part. And even us talking about this Ragnar in Michigan. I'm just excited to go adventure again.
Yeah.
The hell with the race. I mean, I'm going to run it. But I'm just cool. I'm ready to camp out with everybody.
See, the other fun part for me is though, I have Jay, who's a running coach, who's a friend of mine. I have another friend who's a running coach, and I don't train for runs. So I go out and do this stuff. And one of the fun things for me is just to make them mad because I don't train for it. Now, do I turn ridiculously fast times? No, absolutely not. But the fact that I can make you and Melissa cringe, because I'll go out and run a 50K with no training, which I did this year, the first one I'd ever done, farthest I've ever run in my life. Did a 50K with no training just to watch people
You can't do it. It's not optimal.
But on the flip,
but I did it.
Let's be real. On the flip side, though, you don't just sit and eat bonbons all day.
No.
You do train every day. It's just a different it's a different type of training.
Yeah.
So your body is at least conditioned.
That's the other fun thing to me is to people who think that, and the military is notorious for this, especially in the Army, you have to run to be better at running. You don't have to run to be better at running, and I can show you from what I've done that I don't run that much. And am I amazing at running? Do I have the fastest 2-mile time? No. Well, I go out there and run a 50K. Yeah. Well, I do a 25K with a plate carrier on and do a 15K the next day with a plate carrier. Yeah. I did Ragnar with my plate carrier just because, but I don't run that often.
But I think that's what I learned about Jay. You don't have to run, that was one of the things we talked about before when we talked about this running piece of it. People are so, there's so many misconceptions on this running, and you have to run so far, and so this, and so this. And these plans are generated for people that are a 30-year-old male with no injuries or previous whatever, and working with somebody to become a little bit better. It wasn't about running this super long distance, but it was more about hitting these different...
Yeah, run smart.
Run
smart, not harder.
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And it goes back to just coaching in general. Having a mentor in anything that you're doing, whether it be with your finances, or, high performance coach or relationship coach, whatever, to give you the tools that you need to... The knowledge. It's the knowledge gap, so you can execute it easier and cut the learning curve.
Yep.
I think is incredibly important.
Yeah. I'm still not a runner.
You're a runner.
You're so dumb. You are a runner. I don't know what to say. I don't know, Jay. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
What things have
it's your podcast. It's really,
tell us. We're here to hang out.
Podcast. Yeah, I'm excited. We got the podcast has continued to evolve, and we're getting amazing guests. It's a mix of, I'm getting guests that are more well-known, but I like to find people that are still at the ground roots and relatable, like very interesting people. So it's been a nice mix, high-performing people, getting after it, doing cool things, and taking the tips and techniques that work for them. And that's what I try to do, is tease that out. Yeah. So the listener can maybe take something and put in their back pocket, maybe a good book recommendation. I'm fascinated with morning routines, how your intentional
that's a question
time
for
with people.
everybody. What's your morning routine?
Yeah, what's your morning routine? What books have made the greatest impact on you?
I think I've ordered 3 or 4 books in the last 2 weeks, just off of books that are recommended from the podcast.
I need to go back through the podcast and compile a whole list of books that have been recommended, because they've been phenomenal books. A lot of them I've read, some of them I haven't read. But, it's just really interesting. And I've got some really cool guests lined up, just a variety of backgrounds. So
that's awesome.
We're going to continue to expand. I'm now putting the podcast, because I've got all the videos, but I never put them on YouTube. I've been dropping them on YouTube now. So now you can watch the interviews. And, we've got new merch. We're going to have more events. And as I transition from the military, we're going to continue to expand the Forge. I'm looking at 12-week small group workshops and events. So looking at, maybe doing the first annual, actual gathering this year, some kind of doing a difficult thing, weekend away, coaching and doing something cool together. So still putting that together. That's the vision. So we're just getting started.
It's awesome.
I'm excited.
So excited to have you guys be a part of this. And
it's been fun to be part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Never a dull moment.
It's really cool to see where it's come, how far it's gone.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the coolest part for me, is watching where it was a year ago versus where it is now. Podcast and just the growth in your merchandise, your business, just all the growth you've done with putting it on a separate platform with Kajabi, with the members only, the calls you get to do. I know that people always think that you have to be so far ahead or you have to be at a certain place in life to do something like this, but you don't. Right? You can be anywhere. You just have to make it a priority.
Yeah.
And if you make yourself a priority, you'll be amazed with the kind of growth you can have just by putting yourself first a little bit. It's not easy. Sometimes it's hard when people call you out, and that's okay, right? That's a growth. I always tell people, if I get triggered by something, there's probably some internal conflict with me whenever I read or do whatever, but it's been amazing just to watch the growth over the last year by putting myself first and what I want to do, because for me, I think that's where the growth is. I'm not this super, at this super great point in my life where I can be like, oh my gosh, I have all this free time and I have all this excess finances and we've got all this stuff. No, you have to budget and plan and execute and make goals. But that has been the biggest part for me is, when we made it a priority and put ourselves first, that growth. And we're not at this super great point in our life where you could do whatever, but we basically said,
you got to start from where you're at. And you got to make a deliberate effort. Get clear on what you want.
The people who say, oh, I want to wait and lose some weight before I go to the gym.
Yeah.
Or, whatever it is. Oh, I'm going to wait and make some more money before I can start saving money or investing or whatever. No, you start where you are right now.
Yeah.
But
Just
I think that's,
do it.
but I
say
think
you're going to do it and go. Commit
Jay,
and go.
I think that's it though, right? Like
Go public.
if anything, learn from the podcast or from the Forge or period, it's start where you're at now and use that as your building foundation, right? Like use that as the foundation of what you want to do in the future. Find your sense of clarity and what you want to do in your life and then move forward with it and find a group of like-minded people. If you surround yourself with negative people, you're going to be a negative person. But when you start surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, that want to be better, you'll be amazed at the way your mind shifts. And so I think that's been like my biggest takeaway no matter what is you don't have to be anywhere to start your personal growth. And you put yourself around the right kind of people and you'll be amazed with how far you can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we started this thing, seriously, just about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. And it's been tough. Being an entrepreneur is incredibly challenging. All of these systems I've had to learn. And I'm not great at any one thing, but I am consistent. Like every week I'm learning something new, trying to figure out Kajabi or trying to figure out YouTube or being consistent with my social media posts. I mean, people laugh because my grammar is not the greatest.
And
I used to withhold some of that.
Nope.
But now I just throw it out there anyway. And I laugh at it. But the people are still getting the content and they're understanding. And as I grow and develop, I'll get a team. But I used to hold myself back, but I'm not anymore. I don't care. Seth Godin says you got to launch it, you got to ship it. B+ work is good enough. Because if you wait until it's perfect, you'll never get it out there.
Yeah.
So. Like today, we're down here in your basement. It's going to sound a little echoey. We don't have like an amazing studio or anything, but we're here. The content is here, and we're having a great conversation. And we're making it happen, and we'll continue to perfect it in flight as we go. And that's it. That's what it's all about. So, and in my intent, world-class podcast with a large group of followers wearing the Do Hard Things logo. Getting out there and doing awesome things. And last year I just put a little video together. It was cool. I went through and collected all. I didn't even get all of them, but just all of the shirts. People finishing, 100-mile runs, 60-mile runs. Their first, Zanita's photo where she just finished. I think it was a half marathon or whatever, or 10K, and she couldn't even run a mile last year.
Yeah.
All of these people doing these awesome things, wearing like. It made me tear up with pride, and it's just, we're going to continue to grow. So that's it, but you got to start somewhere, Tony Robbins didn't start to where he was, not saying I want to get to that level, but like he didn't start, Dave Ramsey started with a card table in his house. He talks about that all the time.
Andy Frisella.
Andy
the
Frisella.
Piss-stained mattress in the back of the store.
He
talks about it all the time.
Superstore.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere. You got to have clarity in mind of where you want to go. And for years I didn't have clarity, but now I know, and now I've got a vision. We're building it, and I'm honored to have you guys be part of it.
We're pretty juiced to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I love it. But I think that's it, Jay. Like this whole year, out of everything that I've learned, is you don't have to be some high place to start. You start where you're at and you use it as a building block.
Yeah, go from there.
And you find like-minded people and you stay the course no matter what your valley of despair look like.
Well, you got to have that tribe of accountability. That's important.
The one I was just listening to, he's a sports writer. You met him at Castlewood.
Oh, Matt Crossman.
One more step. I can take one more step.
Yeah,
same thing. Just keep pushing.
Just one foot in front of the other. When every fiber in your being wants you to quit, you keep putting
going.
the foot, because most people quit.
Yep.
And that's the exact moment that if you were just to push through just a little bit further. This happened, I did the Dirty Kansas 200. It's now called Unbound Gravel. It's a 200-mile gravel race. And I did this, I want to say that was 2014, 2015, huge storm. And we were completely soaked. There was no end in sight. The gravel became like peanut butter, and it was like caught up in everyone's...
Gross.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Did you guys carry your
I had to carry the bike.
I
People were
remember
carrying
that.
their bikes, and you had your cycling shoes on, which aren't optimal for walking. And people were quitting in droves. They're like, F this, I'm out, this sucks. They're trying to call for rides. I'm literally surrounded by people. I'm like, no, if I just keep pressing through, if I keep pressing through to get to the end of this road, it's going to open up. It has to.
Yeah.
And I think that year, like 1/3 of the whole, 1/3 or maybe even more quit at that section. And I was able to get to that part. It was like smooth sailing. I wouldn't say smooth sailing. It was hard, but it opened up and I was able to finish. But every fiber of my being wanted to quit.
Yeah.
People were quitting in droves around me, but I was ultimately that was like a moment I think about when I.
So 2020, I almost said last year, which now last year was 2021. That's crazy. 2020 Marine Corps Marathon, my first marathon.
Oh my gosh.
No training for it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like a group came up here because the Marine Corps Marathon went virtual. So some people from some different RWB chapters in different states came in to do it as a group here virtually. Like set up a course, came out of Steph's house. I wasn't in town. I signed up for it, but I wasn't in town the weekend that everybody else did it. So they did it on Saturday and Sunday. Weather was beautiful. It was an amazing time. I saw other pictures.
I did it on Friday night.
Yeah, and you
by
did the
myself.
50K.
50K.
Yeah.
You did it. You had it worse than I
Yeah,
did.
so Monday morning, I get back and I'm like, hey, I got to do this. And so, again, never run this far in my life. Out here, if you've ever been to Missouri, like we're not around any big city. There's no such thing as a flat road around here. There's some pretty disgusting hills. And I was like, okay, I've got to go do this. Now, I don't want to say I enjoyed it, but I kind of did it on purpose because I have had, over my life, a bad habit of quitting. Like I'll talk myself into quitting very easily. Yeah. And it would have been nice to do it with a group, but I would have been less likely to quit if I'm with a group, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this on Monday. I'm going to do it by myself, and I'm going to make myself, like, this is my mental toughness game. This is it. So it was 2 loops from my house. I did the first loop. Like, weather was beautiful. Like, Steph came out and checked on me.
It was raining.
Well, no, the first loop was good.
Oh,
I didn't have any
cold.
problems. I stepped out the second loop for the second 13-mile loop, and it started raining on me.
And it was cold.
It was cold.
The temperature had dropped probably 10 or 15 degrees.
So the last 2 miles, like I got to the point like my legs didn't want to move, nothing. I was soaking wet. I was shivering. Like because I was out by myself in our group chat, like every time I would hit a mile, I would put it in the group, 1 mile, 2 mile, just so everybody knew where I was. It got to the point that at like mile 24, I could barely move my fingers to even unlock my phone or send a message. And I thought to myself, I was like, I can call my wife right now. She can come get me. I'm like, I can be done with this. But first of all, I realized that by the time I got a hold of her and she got to me, I could already be home. But at the same time, I was like, no, like I signed up for this. I'm going to do it. And that was my mentality. All I have to do is finish it. It was so bad. Like my wife got a picture of me coming down the hill and you can just see the misery in my face walking down the hill to the house. It was so bad. I couldn't move my hands. I couldn't move my fingers. She had to help me take my clothes off. I sat in the floor of my shower until I ran out of hot water in the house and was still shivering. But that was my mentality is you're not going to quit. Yeah. One more step. One more, get over this hill, get up to the top of this one, then you're going to go down. We're going to be okay. Let's finish this. And that's what got me through it.
What lesson did you take away from that you could apply to your everyday life?
Don't quit.
But why?
Because just like I said, one, I had set a goal for myself. And had I quit, still to this day, I would have regret that I quit and that I didn't finish. Yeah. But I set that goal for myself and I can say I did it. So... that's fun.
It shakes your confidence. Every time you start something and you quit, you don't realize it, but your subconscious is keeping score on that. And over time, it will erode your confidence. And the more that you complete difficult things, the more your confidence will go up.
Well, and like this past year, 2021, I did the Marine Corps 50K virtual. And it wasn't nearly as hard, and a lot of it was because, I had done harder things. Doing the 25K and the 15K at Dogwood, they weren't nearly as difficult. And anytime I even started to think, hey, I could quit. No, remember in 2020 when you right? Borderline hypothermia because you're an idiot? Yeah, no, but you did it, so you're gonna finish.
Well, that's
your confidence.
Yeah,
but that's how I feel about even doing that Dogwood Canyon 50K. Yeah. I mean, never in my life did I think I would actually complete it. And then when I talked about trying to do a 50K, I was like, well, might as well sign up for Dogwood. Yeah. I remember talking to Jay, and he was like,
full send.
70, are you sure you want to do this? Is
I remember having the talk right beforehand, like, okay, are you sure that you want to do this?
Yeah.
Because it's okay.
This is how you're going to feel.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what it's going to be.
And you committed to doing it. I was like, all right.
And I did it. Well, and then there was a group of us, and I honestly don't know that I would have finished by myself. I don't think I would have made the time hack was my problem. Like, there are time hack you have to meet. But, like, there was a point when we were all running back, and I was like, what the did we just sign up to do? Like, it was so, because you run the course out. So Dogwood Canyon is in southwestern Missouri, and it's through a canyon, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it is incredibly hilly, and you go up. I mean, you can reach out in front of you and touch. I mean, it is just, on the 25K, you do this loop and you end. On the 50K, you do the loop, and then you do the loop backwards.
Yeah.
And so you're like, where is the end in sight? I don't even know where the end is. And so at the end, it was the same thing. you know, you're like shivering and you're like, this is so miserable. My legs were like, I don't want to work
water
anymore.
crossings or something.
Yeah, and like you can't get out of the water crossing, so you just run through it, you know, until your feet are wet and you're miserable. And my favorite thing was the aid station with the bacon quesadillas. I'll never forget that. That was like, oh, the salt in like, oh, it was perfect. But you know, even that, like, I was thinking about when I was, you know, Lorenzo was like, that was his first 50K. And he's like, Stephanie, this is really hard. You just need to remember. And I'm like, okay, well, I coach high school athletes. My high school soccer kids had made it to sectionals and they were playing in that game. And I took their picture and printed it out and I carried it in my pocket. And every time I wanted to quit, I would pull it out and be like, this is why I'm running. Because I told them I would do this hard thing. They had to go out and give their all. I need to finish. And I would look at it and I'd stick it back in my dang pocket and I'd be like, I guess I'm not quitting today.
That's a great trick, is having your why. Having your why next to you when you're doing an endeavor or even your day-to-day life. Start off the day with reading your purpose statement, 50 goals, like your why. What is your why? Because there's going to be moments that you're going to quit or want to quit. And that why enables you to like, okay, I can gather the strength and power.
This is what I'm
or I can call some people and they're going to pump me up and help me pull my head out of my ass.
Jenny, you know, our friend Jenny is like a fantastic runner. She's hit the Boston. She's done great things. And I had said something to Jenny and she was like, well, you know, I was thinking about racing it, but I didn't realize this was your first 50K. And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, no, I'm going to run it with you. And I was like, okay, like whatever. Jenny runs 50Ks like it's candy. She could run one this weekend and next weekend. And we're running. And I remember going back. She goes, Stephanie, I'm never doing this course again. And I was like, what? She goes, this is the hardest thing ever. She's like, this is stupid. I don't know why you decided it. And I was like,
she's like a Boston runner.
So I said, like, at this point, ridiculous. I am
she turned around and ran the 15K the next day and like won her age group on the 15K.
Yeah, well, I was like, I'm so glad Jenny stayed with us. Yeah, but she, you know, I felt, what was it? Like, I felt like verified or like whatever. Like Jenny said it was validated. Jenny said it was hard. So now I know. Thank goodness I'm not just being a little sissy lala. Like Jenny's like, this is stupid. I'm like, okay, thank God. Like, so stay the course no matter what.
Well, guys, we're just over an hour. So
there you go.
What? Anything else?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Do it again in a year and see what we can talk about.
We'll be back again next year.
I know. I can't wait to see where we're at next year.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be awesome to see where we're at.
I know.
A year ago, I was actually sitting on the couch in your living room because you didn't realize I was coming over to do it with my earbuds in and my phone. And now Jay's like bringing microphones and cameras and all kinds of craziness. It's great.
Studio
a lot can happen in a year, and you know, just don't let your foot off the throttle.
That's right.
Consistency. Continue to show up. It's awesome to see your growth. I'm excited for all of us because we're all working together. And hey, if you're watching this, you want to join us in the world, all in the forge together. We work together. We help each other out. And, you know, get you some awesome swag.
You can
join the Do Hard Things
Nation. You can rock funding too.
But no, appreciate you guys taking the time. Awesome I just feel tremendously blessed to have you in my 3 a.m. small circle group of people I can call up if I'm feeling sorry for myself. And we all need people like that. So it's just been, I could not be here where we're at today without you guys being a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig, for challenging us to do 75 hard. That's where it started.
Whatever. It is what it is. It's been fun. So.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode or watching us on YouTube. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope that you gained some tremendous value from the conversation with Stephanie and Craig. And if you like the podcast, take a moment and subscribe so you're notified of future episodes. Share a screenshot, tag me on social media. Let me know what insight that you gained from it. Share it with a couple of your friends. Please leave a review. They go a long way to expanding the reach of the podcast. And if you haven't done so, go check out the shop. All of my links where you can contact me are in the show notes, but check out the Do Hard Things shop where you can show the world that you do hard things with this high quality apparel. And if you're ready to level up, you're ready to take yourself to the next level, you can apply for one-on-one coaching. I don't work with that many people one-on-one. I only accept about 10 new clients per year for one-on-one. But we do have other group coaching opportunities. We have the Forge Mastermind. We have adventure coaching opportunities and challenges. So if you want to be notified of future events, join the Do Hard Things newsletter. Go to jteagues.com and you can apply for one-on-one coaching, explore your other opportunities. You can do personal development on your alone. You can listen to podcasts in your car. You can read a book here and there. But when you're truly connected with like-minded people that clap when you win, you got a coach or mentor that's helping you, just like a sports team. Like why would a professional baseball team need a coach? Well, sometimes you just can't see every aspect and you need someone to help guide you, someone that can see things in a different perspective. And that's the power of coaching. It's fundamentally transformed my life. And we're doing great work here in the Do Hard Things Nation with one-on-one coaching and group coaching that can fundamentally transform your life. If you're willing to explore those options, you can reach out to me, connect with me in the show notes, go to jtkeys.com, email me, and we'll get you set up. So thank you so much for listening. We will see you guys in the next episode. In the meantime, keep doing hard things.